Hello, everyone. This is Ray Shash Show, and welcome to another edition of Interviewing the Legends, brought to you by the Rockstar Chronicles Series 1. My book featuring over 45 intimate conversations with the greatest music legends the world will ever know, available now at bookbaby.com and amazon.com. Well, Adrian Belew is a legendary guitarist, well known for his diverse travels around the musical map. He is a multi-instrumentalist whose solo records are critically acclaimed. His moving singing voice and prolific songwriting has endeared a local fan base of music lovers. His music is being discovered every day by more and more listeners thirsty for great music with a creative standard not often pushed by the commercial music industry. Adrian is signed with Bliss Entertainment, distributed exclusively by Ingrooves Music Group. Elevator will be the first Adrian Belew solo recording released through streaming. Adrian and management choose the Ingrooves Music Group channel based on the Ingrooves technology and the Universal Global Distribution channel. As with all artists, the optimization of music sales revenue is key to picking their distributorship and marketing partners. Their first single, A13, is now available. Elevator will feature 12 brand new Belew compositions, all completely written, performed, and produced by Belew, in which cover ballads to art rock to avant pop music. It will also feature 38 of Adrian's recent digital paintings, as well as the lyrics to the songs. Please welcome legendary singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, producer, and guitarist with Frank Zappa, David Bowie, King Crimson, and Talking Heads, Adrian Belew, to Interviewing the Legends. Hello, Adrian.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Where are you calling from today?
Well, I must tell you to begin with that I'm in a car driving down an expressway for a few hours, so I hope nothing happens to interrupt this. If it does, I apologize beforehand, but my wife and I are driving to Gatlinburg, Tennessee for a little weekend vacation.
Oh, that would be very cool. Did you get a cabin?
We did not. We're staying at a nice hotel instead. Our daughters are there already doing a party. Let's see, a bachelorette party.
Oh my goodness!
Our favorite friends.
Very cool. Yeah, my son and his in-laws go there every year, and they get a cabin. And yeah, it's a cool place, what I understand.
Well, it's best if you can go there in the peak season of autumn. The colors are unbelievable, and we have done that already. But this is a different occasion, as I said.
You're probably going to see a few bears while you're out there, huh?
I have seen bears there before. Little black bears in the garbage cans.
That's a little scary, you know. We've got alligators here, and I guess you get used to them.
I don't know if I'd ever get used to alligators, but I'm fascinated by them. I really think they're very much like what a dinosaur would be. So I'm fascinated with lots of animals. So I'm a true animal lover.
Yeah, me too. I think I would probably feel more comfortable though around an alligator than a bear, because you can outrun an alligator most likely.
Truly, that's true. I would not get in the way of a bear. They can run much faster than a human.
Well, I started listening to you. I remember the very first album I got with you was Lone Rhino. Back in, I think it was about, 82, I think. And, I really got into Big Electric Cat. That was such a cool song, you know. But
that's the first song that I ever put on a record of my own, Big Electric Cat.
I love that tune, man. The new single, I wanted to talk about. That's a really cool song, man. 813, where'd you get that title from?
It's first of all, it's the chord that opens the song. There's a big blang kind of chord that opens it, and that is an A13 chord, but the song itself is about a train, a fictional train, so I just thought, well, maybe that would be what the train was called. Coming in on track 14, we have A13. And it was written, as most of this record was, during the great COVID lockdown period,
right?
Where I couldn't play any live music, but I do have a studio in my home. So as soon as I was able to get my engineer to be able to come over, we both wore masks desk and recorded in separate rooms.
Wow.
But Hey 13, so Hey 13 is a song about wanting to get away from all of that and getting on this fictional train. So that's what it's about. But I think it's very indicative of most of the music on the record. So if you want to know what the record's like, go hear it. It's a free download. And if you like that, you're going to get a lot more of that kind of stuff.
You know, you'd be a great fiction writer, you know. You should write some books, man, because you got such a great imagination, you know.
Well, people are always asking me to write a book or two about all my experiences. I just never have time to slow down enough. I'm constantly, you know, busy working or creating or writing or recording or traveling and playing. And so, you know, at some point I will sit down and do all that, but maybe later on in my life.
813 reminds me kind of a 60s spy show in a way. It could be a commercial hit, a radio hit, you know, if commercial radio was only like it used to be. But, yeah, there's also, you know, in some of your music, I always hear hints of Beatles, you know, especially the ending of that song.
Right. Well, the Beatles really were my mentors as much as my, you know, the people that I loved and idolized when I was a teenager. I went on to study their work so much.
Right.
I learned everything I needed to know kind of from the Beatles, really. I learned all kinds of different instruments, how to arrange music, produce music, write songs, write lyrics, melodies. It's all sort of wrapped up in there. But then what you do is you let that stuff go and try to find your own way. But
right.
You do have those influences sometimes pop back in, and I'm very happy with that. I don't try to hide it.
Yeah, I mean it's you know, it's kind of like hidden in there, but you notice it, but you don't notice it like, wow, he's imitating the Beatles. It's not even close to even being that.
No,
you know?
It's not imitation. I'm not trying to imitate them. If anything, it's just in the spirit of their work. And there are other things, of course, in my music that has nothing to do with the Beatles.
Right.
I mean, when I was writing material for 33 years with King Crimson, most of that stuff didn't sound anything like the Beatles. But there, you know, I've always said when you're at a certain young age, that's when you're most impressionable.
Sure.
And that's when music really comes through and really matters for you, sometimes for the rest of your life. And that's what's happened with me.
Did you intentionally try to create a top 40 hit with Oh Daddy? That was a great tune.
That was an accident, honestly.
Really?
My 10-year-old daughter wanted to come in the studio I was working in every day. She said, could I come in and do something? I want to sing. And I don't know. Well, so I kind of wrote that song and then invited her to come in and, you know, record her parts. And then what happened, strangely, at the time I was doing that, a record executive from Atlantic Records was visiting the studio. He heard that track, and he signed me to Atlantic Records on the basis that would be a single. Mm-hmm. I didn't think it would even be on my record because it's not really much like the rest of the record.
Right.
But it was, you know, so it was a happy accident, and you know, I'm glad it happened. We made a really lovely video for it, fun video, animated video, and I think that video was popular, so popular on all three of the video channels at that time, that it propelled it onto the radio a bit more.
You know, it's still popular. I mean, there's a lot of comments on YouTube. I think somebody did the math, and they said that your daughter was around 11 at the time. Is that true?
She was 10 or 11, yes.
And you were like 39 or somewhere around there, and they said, you know, and which means she's like around 40 now or something like that, and they said, do the math.
Do the math, yeah, do the math. It's not hard to do.
I think it's
and for those of you out there who don't know, I'm actually not as young as I look, but I feel great.
You look great, man. You really do. You know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wasn't fishing for that compliment.
But you're doing something right.
I've always felt that being creative and being in music, I don't know, and working with people and getting the love back from them that they give to you,
right,
is a big reason as to why I feel younger and have so much energy.
Yep.
I mean, I walk on stage and immediately I feel like I can be sick even.
Yeah.
And immediately I just feel 1,000% better because there's just an amazing amount of positive energy.
Yep.
Just, knocking me over.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, were you brought up in Covington and KY?
I was born there. We only lived in Covington until I was about 5 years old.
Oh, okay.
And, over the years until I was, in my late teens, we moved 3 more times.
Okay.
And finally, when I was a teenager, I ended up in Florence, Kentucky.
Uh-huh.
And it was there that I joined my first teen band. And that was about the time that the Beatles had just arrived and the British invasion, full of music by the Kinks and the Rolling Stones and all these other great bands. So we followed in their footsteps and started going out making a living every weekend.
Yeah, I got married in Kentucky. That's why I was asking. My wife's from
really?
Yeah, she's from Henderson. Do you know where that is?
I sure do.
Western Kentucky. Right over the bridge from Evansville. Yeah.
Yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah, I love Kentucky, man. It's a great state. It really is. It's a beautiful state.
Yeah, it is. It's a very nice city in the state. I mean, and the city an area that I grew up, northern Kentucky, right across from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Right.
It's filled with really good musicians.
Yep.
It's unusual, the quota. I mean, the per capita. There's a lot of really good musicians there, or there were when I was growing up.
Right. Well, I'm going to talk about, I want to get into your most recent album because I did study that one, and I loved it, by the way, Pop-Sided. I really enjoyed that album, man. I gave it 5 stars, and I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. I just wanted to mention, a couple of the huge bands that you're in, one being with Frank Zappa. What was it like working with Zappa?
Oh, it was my education. It was my actual real college education in music. I like to say I graduated from the Zappa School of Music.
Right.
It was one really intensive year learning 5 hours of very complicated music.
Huh.
And Frank treated me very, very well. I learned so much from him. Mm-hmm. And I think some of the lessons that I learned the most were really how to truly be a professional, worldwide touring musician, how to put out your own records, how to run your own business, so many other things. I mean, we made a film, we did so many things in that 1 year, but his tutelage was exactly what I needed. Up to that point in my life, I'd only really made a living playing in cover bands, playing songs on the radio, like David Bowie songs or something. And so I needed someone to really stretch me into a different region of music, which is, his music is, of course, very complex and also very about odd time signatures, and those were good things for me to learn about.
So he was definitely a conductor, kind of that way, I guess, with the group, huh? Kind of a conductor.
My favorite thing about Frank's music is the compositional things that he does.
Right.
They're extraordinary pieces of music. He's a great 20th century composer.
Right.
That not a lot of people see him as that. They may see him as a freaky guy who sings weird songs and plays guitar, but I think much more his legend will live on as being a great composer, which he was.
Frank was a great guitar player, incredible guitar player.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
The only thing I wish about Frank, though, I wish he didn't get so strange with the lyrics, because his music was so, like you said, so complex, so intelligent, but then he goes off and talks about crazy stuff, you know what I mean? The yellow snow.
I had a little similar reaction to it like that.
Yeah.
My mother, when I joined Frank's band, my mother, that was the first thing that I did of any importance, of course. And suddenly I was traveling around the world, and my mother was a Sunday school teacher. And she said, I want to come to your concert. And I said, Mom, I don't think I want you to come to this concert. I sing some very interesting, weird things.
Well, I think one of my favorite albums, though, by him, it was Apostrophe. I really did like Apostrophe. That was a real winner, like a real commercial winner, even though it did have some strange lyrics in it, but it was well done, very well done album.
Well, he just kind of visually, he just kind of socially looked at society and made, satiristic statements about it. So, as a person, Frank was really very, very nice to me.
Yeah.
And very generous. So he wasn't the crazy kind of guy that I think some people must think he was. He didn't do drugs at all, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Yeah. But imagine if he had lyrics kind of like King Crimson or Yes or, Ian Anderson, Jethro Tull or something like that, and with his music.
Well, he should have let me write some lyrics for him, I guess.
There you go.
I wrote all the lyrics for all the King Crimson songs for 33 years, so I might have been able to help him. But I can only say he gave me the position to start my career from, and I will always love him for that.
I was fortunate to interview some great King Crimson guys. I interviewed Greg Lake, who was a lot of fun. Before he passed, Tony Levin, Ian McDonald, who also passed not that long ago. He's a great guy. And David Cross recently from King Crimson, all these guys. So now you're added to the collection there of the legendary King Crimson crew.
Yeah, it's a fraternity of people who have, tried to do something really different.
Yeah.
And usually suffered for it.
Yeah.
But I think 33 years. I probably deserve a trophy for that.
They were pretty intense, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, I loved it because really I enjoy challenges. That's what I'm all about.
Right.
And it was challenging taking that music and making it into songs. That was one of my big roles in the band. I was the front man, but I was also the singer, the songwriter, and the lyricist, as well as the guitar player.
That's right.
I had a lot of roles, and every one of them were challenging. But the end result is I still play some of that music because it's still timeless.
Oh, it's great music. I love it, man. I will always love King Crimson. It's one of my favorite bands of all time. Yeah. You had the longest tenure in King Crimson besides Robert Fripp as well, right?
That's right, yes.
Yeah. And like you said, you were the singer, you wrote all the lyrics, and of course you're a multi-instrumentalist as well. What was it like working with Robert Fripp?
Well, I think we had a great partnership.
Right.
First of all, the guitar partnership that we had was so unique. It created essentially a new way of playing. A sort of gamelan style where you have two guitar players playing off of one another. And then, of course, as writing partners, almost everything would start with me and him sitting down together quietly.
Right.
And coming up with ideas. And then, if it was deemed that if I said, yes, I think I could turn this into a song, then it was kind of left to me. If it were going to be an instrumental piece, then we would work on it from that angle, and Robert would take the leadership of that. But when it was a song, it was pretty much turned over to me, and he was always very encouraging and supportive of whatever I needed. So, and then the performances live, I mean, it's a guitar force. These two very different approaches to electric guitar.
Well, it's an orchestra. It really is. I mean, Yeah. It's incredible.
And of course, I loved all the other players. We had great rhythm sections. Of course, the first one being Tony Levin and Bill Bruford, two of my all-time favorite players. You can't get someone better. And then later on, we added in Trey Gunn and Pat Masalato, also great players. So all total, it was quite a musical parade that we toured around the world for many years.
It's amazing how many different eras of King Crimson there were, starting, with the Greg Lake era, and of course John Wetton, and they were all successful. Every era was very, very successful. And of course, your era as well, And today there's still.
I was in 4 different versions of the band, actually.
Yeah.
4 different versions.
Right.
And every one of them were just terrific. I couldn't say anything more about them. They just they truly excelled. The live performances were where I think we really shine, even more than the records. But the records are just like live performances. We didn't do a lot of overdubbing or anything like that. We just played together in the studio because the rule was, let's make music that we can then go into next week and play live, and it will sound the same.
Yeah.
So our live performances really came to life because the interaction and the differences that happens when you're performing in front of an audience is magical.
I think of you guys and Pink Floyd for doing that. Like Pink Floyd will play the whole album and they try to match the album live, and everybody doesn't do that. I think that's the way it's supposed to be, really.
Well, I think there's different ways to do it. I mean, for example, what I do with my band, which has for a long time been a power trio.
Right.
We don't try to emulate the records because my records have a lot more parts and things in them. The production is kind of a rich production. Usually I add a lot of ideas in and play them myself. So what we do, though, instead is we reinterpret the songs. And when you do that with a trio, it really makes you have to think completely differently, and everyone really has to play.
Right.
Probably more than they normally would. Certainly if you had more players, it would be divided among other players. But that's a different approach too, and I like that. But if you're a certain artist, I mean, I'm about to go see Paul McCartney, I think, and I want Paul McCartney to sound just like his records.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I agree.
And he does, because I've seen his band and heard it before, and I'm in fact friends with the guitar player Rusty Anderson. So that's exactly right for Paul. But for me, I like to stretch my music and keep changing it and experimenting, so that's what's right for me.
Pop-sided is so cool. I mean, you did everything on that album, right? The instruments?
Oh, yeah, I've been doing everything on my albums for a long time. I would say, by the way, Elevator is my 25th solo record, so that's something I really want to celebrate with everyone, and I hope that everyone will enjoy the record, buy the record, come to see the shows because of the fact that it's kind of a landmark to get to that point.
That's right.
But Elevator is really a perfect partner to Pop-Sided because I mean it's almost the same breath.
Mm-hmm.
I went from writing Pop-Sided right on into writing Elevator, and by the way, since I wrote and finished Elevator, I've already gone and done the next 7 songs for the next record.
Awesome.
So
wow.
It's kind of one continual train of thought for me, and I try to put in each record different types of elements, but basically they're all under the same umbrella, so I play everything and do everything, and that makes them truly my music. I even do the artwork. That's the way I like to have it done for me. I know it's not right for everyone. Some people prefer bringing in other musicians to do the parts and get their ideas. I really don't feel I actually need that because I know what I want and I can mostly do it all. If I can't do something, I'll get someone else.
It's nice to have total control, though, not like record companies bossing you around,
Well, I've never had that.
Yeah.
Even when I was with big record labels, they never tried to boss me around.
Oh, that's
I think
good.
They figured it was useless. I've always produced my own records too, so
awesome.
There you go. I'm a one-man recording artist.
It kind of reminds me of Todd Rundgren a little bit, because he does a lot of his own stuff too.
Yeah, which is interesting because Todd Rundgren and I are going to be touring together.
You're kidding me.
This October and November.
Wow.
We are going to be the guest stars of the tour that's called Celebrating David Bowie, which celebrates David Bowie's music, of course. And it's a pretty big event. Sometimes the band is different every time. I've been in 3 of those tours. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's an orchestra, sometimes it's a 12-piece band, sometimes we have stars from whatever city we visit, like Sting or someone like that. And this is going to be great to have me and Todd doing it together. Also, Todd's new record, he asked me to co-write a song with him on that new record. And so we have a new song together called Puzzle.
Oh, cool.
That will be coming out on his record.
Awesome. Well, I can't imagine the two electronic geniuses getting together like that. What's going to happen? I mean,
I think, I love what he did the song. I had the song about halfway done, and that was the idea. He said, "Do you have any material that's you're not quite finished with? And could I finish one of them?"
Right.
I sent in 4 songs, and he chose one, and I thought, I don't know how he's going to do much with this song. As he said to me, it's a very somber song. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, it kind of is, because it's about the struggles of people.
Right.
And he said, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it uplifting. And I said, well, good luck with that. And I'll be darned, he wrote the missing thing was the choruses. And he wrote the choruses, and he did exactly what he said. And the song is, I couldn't be happier with what he did with it. And so it's really a great collaboration between two of us. And when we did 2 shows with celebrating David Bowie a couple of years back, I think 2019, just before COVID, in Iceland.
Wow.
I remember we first saw each other in the elevator, and he said, well, we've been talking about this for years. It's about time we did this.
That's right. I can't wait. I really can't. That's awesome. What a collaboration that's going to be. The Pop-Sided, I just want to mention a few songs. I love the album, and everybody needs to not only buy Elevator, they need to go back and buy Pop-Sided as well. Because like you said,
that's what we're hoping will happen on tour. Yeah. We do a lot of CD sales at the tours.
Yeah.
During the shows or afterwards or in between somewhere. That's where a lot of that happens, because I think when people hear the music live,
right,
then they say, wow, I need to have this. So
yeah,
I think people will buy both of them, hopefully. But Pop-Sided is very much in the same ballpark.
I want to mention the times we live in. Did that happen before COVID?
Yes, it did. It happened around the time that, I don't know, all the things were starting to happen, riots and crazy things like that. And I really felt like, what on earth is going on here? I never really feel like I fit in these times. I've always felt like I should have been born maybe and maybe had been a teenager or a recording artist in the 60s. I might have fit more to that era.
Right.
But even that era was turbulent too. But when writing that song, I was really trying to say, what has happened to civility?
Yeah.
And people treating each other with respect and being nice, and with each other being able to have their own viewpoints.
Yeah.
And I think that's gone missing all of a sudden. It started back then, but it still seems to be a little bit missing in our society, and I think that's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
I fashioned that song kind of after one of my favorite writers, Ray Davies from the Kinks. And I thought, well, I'm going to make this song sound a little bit like a 60s Kinks song. And I think I succeeded in that way.
I'm pretty good at what I do, I got to tell you, because I got my notes here. I said, kind of Kinks, very 60s, top 40. It's amazing.
Oh, there you go, see?
It's amazing. That song could have been a hit back then. I mean, a big hit,
Well, I think I've had songs that maybe could have been a hit.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not in the cards for me. I don't know. I've never really locked horns with anyone in the music industry who's understood how to market what I do, because it is very eclectic and it's changing all the time. And what happens a lot of times is 10 years later somebody says, wow, that song Min and Hill,
exactly.
Wow, that should have been a hit.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, I thought so at the time too, but the record labels never realized that.
Well, I was a top 40 disc jockey back in the late 70s, and I grew up in the 60s listening. I mean, AM radio back then, that was everything. The transistor radio, that's all we had.
Oh, gosh, yeah. That was what I grew up on.
Yeah.
That's how I educated myself. When I liked something I heard on the radio, I got the record and figured out everything on it.
Oh, it was so cool.
And that's how I taught myself all the instruments and everything else,
All right, well, what was the first 45 that you bought? Do you remember?
I think the first one I bought was by Roy Orbison, and it was called Pretty Woman.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I mean, I had heard other records before then, but I don't think I had a record player until about then. That was 1965.
Right.
So, I've been listening to other records and borrowing them or listening at other people's places. But I think my grandmother for my birthday gave me a record player, and then I started collecting records.
I think my first ones were Purple People Heater by Sheb Woolley, and the Twist.
Chubby Checker.
Chubby Checker, yeah.
Well, I listened to the radio continually back then, so I knew all those songs.
Those were the good old days.
One day I was standing there in the hallway of my parents' house, and I heard 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, you was just 17, and that changed my life.
They say the 60s were turbulent. I disagree. I mean, there were some bad times there with the Kennedy's assassination of Martin Luther King, but the music was the best ever, And
that's not how I remember them. They weren't turbulent in my mind.
Yeah, me either. They were great times.
I wasn't living in those places where all those bad things were happening. They went right over my head.
Yeah.
I was a young man, teenager, enjoying the music. The music was everything. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like today, kids, everything is their iPhone.
Right.
And way back then, everything was music.
Exactly.
It was the most important thing. You waited.
Yep.
You couldn't wait for the next record to come out of whatever favorite band or artist that you love so much. You just rushed to the record store and got it as soon as it came out. I remember buying Revolver, the first day.
You remember recording songs off the radio?
I didn't have a way to do that.
Yeah.
My family didn't have much money. I won't say we were poor. We were lower middle class, but I didn't even have a car until I was 20.
Really?
Huh. But fortunately, I was in a band, and we shared everything. We shared all the music. We shared, rides. And so I learned everything via just being around other people.
I grew up in a family business, and my dad had stores since late 50s. We started in Baltimore, and then we ended up in D.C., but it was electronic. So I saw the very first everything, transistor radios, reel-to-reel tape recorders, the first Walkman, the first CD, portable CD. I mean, we saw it all, man. So that was a plus.
That's a real plus, yeah. I remember eventually getting a tape recorder and experimenting with sounds and running the tape backwards and stuff.
Exactly.
But it wasn't mine. I borrowed it from the bass player in my band.
Huh. So some of the other tracks...
though, I borrowed a guitar on myself to play songs and went from being a drummer into being a singer-songwriter guitarist.
Yep.
And that propelled me forward from there. I never stopped playing drums. I still do.
Right.
And I love all that. But in order to write songs and explain them to other people, you need to have a tonal instrument.
Right. You're a great guitar player, man. I love your style. You're very eclectic, I mean, some of the songs on that album, Obsession, very cool intro. Very cool. So I love the 60s references, kind of top 40-ish sounds that you do, like Everybody Sitting, the really cool lyrics, 60s sound, kind of psychedelic there. Lobsters and is it Hypocrite? Very Frank Zappa type.
I always throw.
You got to throw one of those in there.
Very off the wall.
Yeah, very cool.
I enjoy that kind of writing. I enjoy writing that kind of lyric.
Right.
And I like having odd time signatures. But for both pop-sided and elevator, I've tried to keep more within the range of, my kind of pop songs.
Yeah. But, you got to...
There's not crazy, wild instrumentals or heavy-duty things that are dark and sinister sounding. These are songs that uplift you.
Exactly.
That's why I named the record Elevator. I thought, I wanted to elevate people.
Yeah.
Because of the times that we're going through here. I mean, after COVID and and everything else. I feel like everyone needs to lighten up and go back to love now, love each other.
That's right.
And and be happy and stuff, and enjoy music and enjoy your lives. And because I think humanity just went through a fairly dark period.
I know. See, that's the thing. That's the cool thing about the '60s. We did have that love, generation type people that came in. There were, and I don't care, black, white, whatever. There was always a unity there. People always say there was a racist times and all that. That's bullcrap, because I grew up in D.C., man, as a kid, and it wasn't like that at all. It was solid.
I totally agree with you.
It was solidarity.
With everything you said just then.
It was solidarity, man.
It was an era of everyone loving each other and trying to find new ways of existing together.
That's right.
And those race wars or whatever that happened, I don't know. They went under my radar.
There was no race wars. The only time it was bad in D.C. was the '68 riots when Martin Luther King. That was it. Besides that, it was. Here's a good example: Sly and the Family Stone. The way that band was orchestrated. That's a perfect example. Of how that was back in the '60s.
And the radio itself shows you what it was. Look at all the Motown artists and then all the British artists on the same station every day, all day long.
Exactly.
And it just showed appreciation for every kind of music and every kind of person.
Exactly.
I don't believe the '60s were the way they're now painted.
No.
Whenever you see a documentary now, it makes it seem like we weren't so in love with everyone, but we were.
It's a bunch of crap, man. It really was. I love that. I love that time, and I'm so happy I grew up in the '60s. I really am.
It was one of the greatest times for music ever. One of the golden eras. Absolutely. Which is why sometimes it still seeps through into what I do, because I love the spirit of that, and I want to still evoke that in some of the music I do.
Yep.
And I want people to, even people who have no idea where it's coming from. If you're a 20-year-old, you certainly don't know that music very well, most likely, but it's still valid today.
Yep.
It certainly is. So many bands, whether they know it or not, they're still shadows of some of that era.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. Well, you got one song on that album. I got to ask you if that's a personal experience or not. Road Rage?
Road Rage. Kind of, yes. I mean, not those specifics, but that's, it's troublesome to me. People take it so seriously. They get so upset, But once again, it was with the theme of the record being, let's treat each other better and be more civilized to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of it's an ongoing theme throughout some of the words.
It's a great message, man. The whole album, I love the album. Like I said, 5 stars all the way, and I can't wait for Elevator.
Thank you.
Can't wait for Elevator. Were you in the studio with William Shatner when you did that album, or was that kind of a separate part?
Yeah, that was in the studio. One day, I got a call and said, "Can you come over to a studio later tonight at 10 o'clock and record with Bill?" And I was like, "Well, of course." So it didn't even start till 10, and we went till 4 in the morning. And even at 4 in the morning, William Shatner was still running around like an 8-year-old.
Amazing.
He has so much energy.
Wow.
And he's so infectious that it was really great fun. I loved that session.
Now,
I don't usually do sessions that often anymore, but that was one I really said, no way I could miss this. I just want to be involved in it.
So is he really a prog rock fan?
I suppose so, yeah.
Yeah. And was that Billy Sherwood that orchestrated that? I know he's done that in the past. No, it wasn't him. Okay.
No, but in fact, I just was talking to Billy Sherwood the other day on the cruise that we do every now and then, and it was fun seeing him again.
Yeah, he does some great stuff. I've had Billy on the show several times. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is a good guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many great players, and the nice thing is when they turn out to be nice people, too.
Exactly. You know,
I feel fortunate that, that I have people who love what I do
right.
and have supported me throughout my life, and there's no way I'm going to do anything but be really, really sweet and nice to them.
You know, I've done over 1,000 interviews. I haven't had one bad experience. You know that?
That's good.
Yeah, not one.
I kind of feel like when you're in this hallowed position that people like myself are in, and I wasn't sure I would ever be at this point, but here I am. When you're in that position, you owe it to people to be nice to them.
Sure.
And I love my fans. I love playing for them. I love talking to them, being around them. That's why we have a camp every year where the fans can come and hang around with us and have lunch and dinner and jam with us and do all that stuff. I went to lunch with someone from out of town just yesterday who is a fan of mine from one of those band camps.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open for those kinds of things. I don't, feel like I'm a, quote, a star.
Right.
I feel like I'm a creative recording artist. That's a different thing.
Right. And a pioneer. I think you're a pioneer. You definitely are a pioneer.
Well, yeah, I hitch up my wagon every now and then and try to do new things. I'm a pioneer.
Speaking of pioneers, I got to ask you about the Flux app.
Yeah.
Tell me how that works.
Well, originally what I was trying to figure out how to do is have music that's never the same twice.
Right.
And it took me really 30 years to figure it out. And it wasn't until apps came along that there was a way to really make that happen. There's no way you could put music and songs on a record that it would be different each time you listen. But with the app, I figured out a way that you could do it. And so I put hundreds of things, pieces and bits of music and sounds and just all kinds of things in the app. And every time you press play, you'll get a different half-an-hour version of that.
Huh.
And I also would do things like take a song, and most of the songs are very short because they fit into that idea that things happen quickly and change from one thing to the other. But I would do multiple versions of those songs, differently orchestrated with different sounds, even different lyrics. And so that way you might hear the song again, but it might be completely different. And over time, it would take a long time, I think, of playing the Flux app before you would really even hear it all. And you would never hear it in the same sequence. And of course, the app also allowed me to do some visual things in there. They weren't elaborate because it was not easy. You couldn't do that. It would have been too big of a download. But they are changeable. You can run your fingers across the screen and they do things. You can even make your own paintings out of the paintings of mine that were in there. You just mess around with them and then you push a button and it saves that into your gallery. But the unfortunate thing now is that several times back ago, Apple's always changing their operating system, and several operating systems back, they changed it in a way that does not allow the app to work properly now. But we're working on it. We're going to get it working again. So
do you know code?
Yeah, I don't know. I had a company in Amsterdam who took two and a half years to invent this. And what they invented was a type of random engine. That's how it's explained to me. That, as I say, every time you press the button to play for half an hour, it will just randomly choose a whole new set of things. Wow.
Now, do you share a patent, or do you have the patent on this?
I don't have a patent on it. I figure if anyone else wants to spend $250,000, let them go ahead.
Wow, that's incredible.
I'm just teasing. I mean, it did take a lot of time to do it, about 6 or 7 years of my life, so it was costly, at least in that way.
That's incredible, man. The other thing you got involved with was Parker guitars, right?
Yes, right.
Another thing, designing guitars. That's neat.
Well, you know, Ken Parker really had designed, I feel it's the most advanced design for a guitar ever. It's literally solved all the problems that are inherent in most guitars, going out of tune and neck bending and having to replace frets and all kinds of things. He solved all those problems, and he put it into a lightweight guitar that weighs 5 pounds and plays so much better than most guitars. Now, what I did when I got it, I needed to update what it could do electronically. Mm-hmm. So he designed the guitar. I won't take credit for that, but I really asked for the things that made it current. Mm-hmm. So it's a MIDI guitar. It has a piezo pickup in it, so it can sound like an acoustic guitar. The Adrian Belew model also has a variax in it, which is a system that was new at the time that allows you to utilize the sounds of 26 different types of guitars.
Wow.
Including a sitar or a 12-string or a Les Paul or a Stratocaster.
You got to be kidding me.
Telecaster. Yeah, so all of those things are on tap with my Adrian Belew model.
Right.
And those are the things that made it different from the typical models. But even the typical models are superb guitars. And now, by the way, I've also been working with Fender, and we're bringing out an Adrian Belew Fender Strat, and it'll be the same thing, sort of a modern, slightly modernized version of the Fender Strat. Wow. And I'm really pleased with those. They're going to be great. You'll be able to buy them through the custom shop. They won't be an everyday model you find at Guitar Center.
Now, the Parker's the one that's going to be 5 pounds, though. That one model.
Oh yeah, the Parker was 5 pounds. But even the Strat, I've taken some of the cues from the Parker.
Okay.
And it's a very well balanced guitar, not very heavy. It has a very unique tremolo system on it that was made in Spain. I discovered it. This company that makes them called Vega Trim, and I think it's the best new version of a tremolo arm that's available commercially. And also the finishes, they're done by the custom shop, so they're totally handmade guitars.
You know,
they're not done, at a factory in Mexico or something.
Right. You know, I play guitar, but I've had several surgeries on my wrist and also my shoulder, and I got pins and plates. So I need a light guitar. I need a new guitar, by the way. How much are the Parkers going for?
Well, they're hard to find because the Parker company went out of business a few years ago. They were actually bought by a Canadian conglomerate, and then the Canadian conglomerate fired everyone in the Parker company and moved the company to Canada.
Right.
And they've not put out a guitar since.
Wow.
So I think the thing about Parkers, they're very difficult to make. There's a whole technique. They're covered in a carbon fiber and then put in an oven and it bakes the carbon fiber into the wood, thereby making it the tensile strength about 10,000 times stronger, which is why the neck won't move, it won't bend, it won't go out of tune ever, and that's why it can be so light. Otherwise, the neck would just kind of sap off. Mm-hmm. It's so thin and light.
Right.
But you can still find them. They're not cheap because of the process.
Right.
But if you find one, you're going to love it. I'll just tell you that. They're for certain kinds of players. I don't have large hands, and it fits my hands really well.
Yeah.
Now, for someone who wants a chunkier kind of guitar, like maybe a Les Paul or something, it may not play the way they like it. But for me, it was life-changing.
Yeah, I've always played Tellys, and I don't like playing like the Gibsons, the Les Pauls, because they're too, like you said, they're too chunky for me. So,
well, that's the thing about guitars. They're made for different people for different reasons. They have different characteristics. So I'm not saying that one is better than anyone else or better for everyone. But for me, those are the two choices for me. A great Fender Strat or a Parker, and I can probably do everything I could ever want to do, except the true acoustic guitar.
Right.
Of course, and I have Taylor guitars for that.
Okay, here. I'm going to probably be shocked by this. How many guitars do you own?
I don't really have a recent count. I'm trying to get rid of some. Because they're just, where do you put all those cases? But I think it's somewhere around 60.
Oh my God!
And many of my guitars have been given to me by manufacturers. I'm very, very fortunate that they want me to try their guitars, and if I like them, I'll say, yes, I'll try this, and I'll record something with it and talk about it in the music press. And so I rarely, almost never have bought guitars in my life anymore, which is very fortunate, as I say.
Very cool.
I'm not a collector.
Yeah.
I don't go out and look for vintage guitars, and I'm not looking to build a giant collection of guitars. It's just so happened that that's what's happened over 40 years.
Yeah. I guess as you get older too, it's like Clapton and David Gilmour. They've gotten rid of a lot of their guitars too. You
have to kind of sort them out at some point, because it's kind of ridiculous to have too many. What I like to do, and what I'm working towards, is having the ones that have certain different different characteristics, different sounds, and are the ones that I come back to again and again to put on record.
Exactly.
And I have several different kinds of guitars that really do things that nothing else does. Like, there's nothing that sounds like a big fat Gretsch from the 60s. That's the only vintage guitar I have, is a 1962 Gretsch.
Wow.
And truly, they don't make a guitar like that anymore.
Yeah, you can just sell that one and retire. It's amazing how the guitars have held their value. It's better than the stock market. It really is.
That's true. Yeah, it's true. Guitars really, if you have the right ones, they're blue chip in a way. I mean, you can keep them for years, and the price just kind of keeps going up, especially if you choose the right ones. I had a 73 Fender Telecaster that I sold because I'm an author and I needed money for publishing and things like that, and so I sold the 73 Tele, and I had a lot of signatures on there. I had like Alvin Lee, Eric Burden, Johnny Winter. I met all these guys, so they signed the guitar, and I was at a Sam Ash. And I told him about the guitar. He said, bring it in, And I paid $300 for it in Wheaton, Maryland, at I forgot the name of a very big music store way back when. They went to every cash register in the store, and they gave me close to $4,000 in cash for the guitar. Wow, that is great.
They emptied out all the cash registers, and hey, here, man. So, I mean, they really hold their value. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, they do, and especially when they're signed by famous people, that doesn't hurt the value at all either.
Yeah, exactly. I had
used by famous people. I used to, with Frank Zappa, I played his guitar that was owned by Jimi Hendrix.
Wow. Very cool.
And that guitar, I think, if I'm correct, I think it sold for $550,000 not too long ago. I'm not absolutely certain of that, but it did have, in terms of provenance, it had Jimi Hendrix playing it, Frank Zappa playing it, then me playing it, then Dweezil Zappa playing it.
Incredible.
So it's got a history there.
Incredible. Alvin Lee did play my guitar. I was backstage at it was kind of it was him and Eric Burden and Ansley Dunbar, and I was backstage and hanging out with those guys, and Alvin said he really did like my guitar.
Well, he's a Tele player.
Yeah.
I love Teles too, by the way, and I love Mustangs.
Yep.
I tend to through my life have been more of a Fender person, although there are some Gibsons I really love.
Yeah.
I have a few.
Right.
And there's one that I still don't have that I've always keep wanting to get, and that's the nice big acoustic that Lennon and McCartney used back in their days.
Exactly.
Especially Lennon. I want one of those someday in my life. But as you say, you can't have all of them, and you can't have everything. So I'm very pleased with all the stuff that has come my way.
Have you met any of the Beatles?
I have met Ringo and Paul, and I had about an hour-long private conversation with Paul in his presidential suite. That was at the Four Seasons in Philadelphia.
Oh, cool.
And it was a highlight of my life. We had a great time, and he would start a story and I would finish it.
Really?
Because I know all the stories so well.
That's funny.
It was delightful to be able to hang around with him. Now, Ringo, I interrupted his dinner.
Did you?
I had to.
Yeah.
You know, there he was. He was sitting by himself, and I asked him if he would like to come that night to our show, which was a Frank Zappa show. And he knew Frank Zappa very well, and he had played in the movie called 200 Motels. So I said, "Would you like to come to our show?" And he said, "No, thanks, mate. I'm strictly 4/4."
I've covered a lot.
I aim to meet him again, though. I have enough friends who play with him and been around him. I figured that I'll probably meet Ringo again. Hopefully, Paul too.
Yeah, Ringo.
They're such, they're living heroes, living gods, really, to musicians. There's no one that has achieved what they ever achieved. No one will ever achieve it again.
You gonna hang backstage with Paul when you go see him?
If I can, I would love to. If that's not if it's something that he does, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's tired of it.
Yeah.
But I would like to say hello to him.
Well, maybe he'll bring you out on stage.
Well, I know their show is so good, and it's a 3-hour show. I'm sure it's very, very orchestrated.
Yeah.
And I really can't wait to see him again. I saw him back in the days with him and Linda when they were Wings, and that was also a phenomenal show. And then, of course, when they were on his band that he currently has, did the Super Bowl halftime, and in my opinion, it was the best Super Bowl halftime ever.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Kind of miserable.
I agree. Yeah, that was a great Super Bowl. It really was. It's so cool, though, that he just plays all the Beatles songs now, He'll play them all.
It's amazing that he has the stamina, and he can play a 3-hour show, and every one of them's a hit.
Every one of them's a hit.
It's just incredible, really.
It just brings back...
I hope to follow him in that way. Well, I won't have the hits, but I hope to be able to someday be on stage and do all my stuff the same as I'm doing it now.
It just it's a timeline of your life when you hear a Beatles song, It really is. That's why people get so emotional, because it reminds them of so many things growing up, back in the day.
I told you that we do a camp on the top of a mountain called Big Indian in the Catskills.
Huh.
And at the end of the camp, we gather around a campfire. There's usually 100 campers, and we sing 50 Beatles songs.
Oh, cool.
I lead them in singing 50 Beatles songs.
That sounds like fun. Yeah.
And everybody knows every word.
Huh.
Of course.
That's amazing.
It's a testament to the effect they've had on mankind. I seriously mean that.
Yeah.
There's very few things I can think of that changed the world as dramatically as they have.
Yeah.
Other than bad things like wars and earthquakes and things like that. But their change to the world was very, very, very positive, and it was all about love. So there you go, folks.
I watched the biography of like Mozart, and those great composers died so young. But they created all these incredible songs and compositions so quickly, one after another.
They were very, very young. I mean, you're talking about 8 years old, 10 years old. They were writing masterpieces.
But the Beatles,
that's just the way that humans were back then.
Yeah.
If you knew that your lifetime was only going to be 30 years, which was kind of average for a lot of the time, I guess you got your education started and you jumped in as quickly as you could and did everything you possibly could. Plus, they had a lot more time on their hands.
Yes.
Modern society is so, we're so, what's the word I'm looking for? There's so much stuff to look at and do, and it's very hard to be very, very disciplined and just be, like say Mozart was, just a great pianist, artist, writer, composer, so forth. It's a different different era. People can't do that now. They're not so much. I mean, you've got too many other things to look at.
They're distracted. You can't be focused.
Distractions. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can't. You got. They can't be focused. Everything's multitasking nowadays. But
Yeah, and it gets harder that so many things have been done.
Yeah.
It is harder to be original, honestly.
Right.
I feel like I come up with some original things just because
definitely.
of my personality. You know, I'm a different kind of. I think differently. I don't know why. Maybe there's something wrong with my brain.
You know what I'm amazed at from back in those times too is the way they handwritten like the Bible and the penmanship, how beautiful it is.
That's what I'm saying. They had time.
Yeah.
They had the time. They didn't have anything else to do. They didn't have televisions and iPhones and really no distractions. I mean, basically, you ate and you worked and you died.
Yeah, that's it. That's about it. Adrian, I
love history. I'm a big history fan.
Me too.
And I've gone through so many different eras of history and types of history, different segments, be it, the Dark Ages or Russia or Japan or anything, you name it. I kind of go in spells where I just try to absorb everything about. And it's just truly amazing what humans have done and where we've come from to be where we are now.
I just lost my dad recently. He was 97, and he was in World War II, and he was in Saipan in Okinawa, and so, man.
Wow, really?
Yeah, he had some stories there. And I remember
I would love to talk to him. I love people like that.
And I remember my grandma. She was born in the 1800s, and she would talk about the first car and all the it was so cool to talk to her about all that too. Yeah.
My wife's grandmother just passed away recently at age 101.
Wow.
And she was still very lucid. It was the same way of talking with her.
Yeah.
It was just like you're walking through a path that no one really even realizes anymore or could imagine. It's so different.
It is so different.
Can you imagine what her life changes that she went through and the things that she saw change? I mean, I just, it kind of really amazes me to think, to go through all that stuff from the horse and carriage age to the computer age.
Exactly.
Unbelievable, really.
Exactly. That's incredible, man. Adrian, I can talk to you all day, man. You're such an interesting guy, but I do have your final question here.
Okay.
I ask this question to everybody. I ask this question to everybody. I get some very interesting answers. If you had a Field of Dreams wish like the movie to perform or collaborate with anyone from the past or present, who would that be?
I guess I'd go back with the Beatles and see what they were like. I'd love to walk in on the Cavern.
Yeah, way back then, huh? Yeah, the early days.
I would like to have seen what they were really like before everyone knew what they're like. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
But I can think of many other scenarios. Wouldn't it be fascinating to walk back into dinosaur times? Of course, you'd probably be dead in 3 seconds.
Get stepped on?
or to go back in biblical times and see what that was really like, or Rome, or, being a history buff, there's so many things. But I think to go back into the time I'm interested in, you would at least know the language, and you'd probably survive.
Yeah. Very, very, that's a good answer. I get some great, Petula Clark, I interviewed Petula, and she said she wanted to be in Pink Floyd. Could you imagine that? I that threw me for a loop.
I would have never guessed that.
No, me either.
It's easy to guess my answer. I guess most people who know me would say, yeah, he'd probably want to do that.
Well, that and Jimi Hendrix are the most common,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have dreams with Jimi Hendrix where he and I are sitting around, so I do feel like I've met him, strangely, and I did see him play live.
Oh, you did see him?
My first band, and my first concert ever in my life was the Beatles at Crosby Field in Cincinnati, Ohio.
What was that like?
So, it was incredible. I think there was 25,000 23,000 people. They were out in the middle of a baseball field. They sounded like a little tiny transistor radio when you could hear them, but mostly what you heard is the screaming that all of us were doing constantly. Yeah. There was never been anything like it. I don't know how you would see this day, but every one of us stood up from the minute before they even walked out from the dugout and ran onto the field. We started screaming our guts out, and we just loved every second of it. We were beside ourselves. I don't know, that's Beatlemania. It truly was a phenomenon. I mean, it truly was. I mean, there's no getting around it. Girls were crying, and everyone was just beside themselves with joy. But it was joyful.
Right. Isn't that crazy how the impact is still there after all these years, though? You know? I mean...
Well, that's what I mean. There's something very special about all of it. It's not a normal situation, so you really can't say that something happened. Yeah. And I don't know what it was, and it may never happen again, but I'm glad I was there. That was, as I say, that was my first concert.
I interviewed Pete Best, so we talked about the early days, and I interviewed Julian Lennon, and that was, oh my God, I was just like talking to John. There's so much alike, you know.
That's exactly what my wife said. She's a friend of his. Yeah. And she was going to school in Alabama, and he was hanging out there at the studio. And she got to know him over a few different days, and she said it was like talking to John.
He was
so reminiscent. It reminded her so much, and he was a very, very sweet guy.
He's a nice guy, really cool guy.
Yeah, very nice person.
He's got a new album coming out, I think, in November, and I think I'll be able to talk to him again. You know.
Well, tell him I send my best wishes to him.
I will. He's a great guy. I want to say...
All right, well, listen, great to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, too, man. I want to say special thanks, of course, to the great Billy James of Glass Onion PR for this interview. We're all going to watch out for the release of the brand new album, Elevator, by Adrian Belew. The new single is out.
Come out and see us in July and August. We're all over the place.
Yes, you are.
East Coast and South.
8/13 is...
We'll do the West Coast next year.
Oh, okay. You don't have any Florida dates, though, I don't think.
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's all coming next year.
You're opening July 13th in St. Paul, right?
That's right.
And you'll be in my old stomping grounds July 30th in D.C. at the City Winery, and, of course, in Annapolis at Ram's Head Tavern, which I was a DJ in Annapolis. I was a top 40 DJ in Annapolis, so that's going to... I know Ram's Head. That's a cool place.
Well, all this information is, of course, up on the internet, and go to my Facebook or just look it up, Google it. And I really can't wait to play for everyone. I think I'm going to have an incredibly good band and a great show for everyone. And, of course, then you can also get your copy of Elevator or even Pop-Sided. Get them both, folks.
Get them both. They're the album is incredible. AdrianBelew.net is your official website. You're on Facebook. You're on Twitter. Adrian, thank you so much, man, for being on the show today. It's been great talking to you.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Bye-bye.
Me too. Take care. Bye-bye now.